Anthropic gives away its entire training catalog for free. No paywall, no subscription, no catch. 20 self-paced courses, plus a learning path, covering everything from your first conversation with Claude to building production-grade agent infrastructure. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to walk you through every single one of them, what each course actually teaches, who it's for, what order to take them in, and which two of them matter most if you work in research computing. Let's get into it. Here's the uncomfortable truth about how most people use AI. There are roughly 3 levels. Level 1 is chatting. You type a question, you get an answer. It's genuinely useful, and it is also the shallowest possible use of the technology. Level 2 is building. You're calling the model from code, in a loop, giving it tools, handling its outputs programmatically. Level 3 is integrating, where the model reaches into your own data, your own pipelines, your own infrastructure. Almost everybody stops at level 1. This catalog is the ladder from 1 to 3. And it's growing fast. When Anthropic Academy launched in March of 2026, it had 13 courses. As of this recording, there are 20, plus a bundled learning path for K through 12 educators. 6 new courses arrived in just the last few months. Everything is self-paced. Everything is hosted on SkillJar, which is just the learning platform they use, and you get a completion certificate you can attach to your LinkedIn profile. You do not need an Anthropic account to access the learning content. You need a free SkillJar login. That's the whole barrier to entry. Let me give you the map before we walk the territory. Everything in the catalog falls into one of 4 tracks. Foundations is how the tools work and how to think about working with them. Building is the developer track. The API, Claude Code, skills, subagents, 𝗬𝗂, and the model context protocol. Cloud is about running Claude inside AWS or Google Cloud infrastructure, which matters enormously if your data can't leave your institution. And people and organizations is about teaching this to others and rolling it out across a team. We'll take them in that order. Track 1, Foundations. Claude 101 is the front door. It covers core features and everyday work tasks. And honestly, most people who have used Claude for a year will still learn something here, because the interface has far more in it than the chat box suggests. Projects, artifacts, file handling, how to structure a long-running piece of work so you're not re-explaining context every session. It also does something useful at the end. It points you at the right next course instead of leaving you to guess. If you only ever take one course, take this one. AI Capabilities and Limitations is one of the newer additions, and I'd argue it's underrated. It's an introductory course on how AI actually works, not how to prompt it, how it works. Why a language model fails in the specific ways it fails. Why it will confidently produce a citation that doesn't exist. Why it's excellent at some tasks and unreliable at others that look superficially similar. If you're a scientist, this is the course that calibrates your trust. And calibrated trust is the entire game when you're using these tools on real work. AI Fluency, Framework and Foundations is the conceptual backbone of the whole catalog. It's built around a set of core competencies, and I want you to sit with these for a second, because they map perfectly onto research work. Delegation is deciding what to hand to the AI and what stays with you. Description is communicating the task well enough that what comes back is usable. Discernment is evaluating the output with an expert's eye. And diligence is owning the result. Verification, honesty, accountability. Effectively, efficiently, ethically, and safely. That last word is doing a lot of work. I want to make this concrete because in a lab the failure modes are different. When the output is a figure in a paper, discernment is your job and it never transfers to the model. A plausible-looking effect size is far more dangerous than no effect size at all because it survives review. Verification is not optional. If you can't regenerate it from the code, it doesn't go in the manuscript, and you have to actively want honest negatives, because these systems will cheerfully hand you the result you hinted you were hoping for. Fluency isn't a bag of prompt tricks. It's knowing where to apply pressure. Track 2, Building. This is where the leverage is. Claude Code 101 teaches you to use Claude Code in your daily development workflow. Claude Code is an agentic coding tool. You point it at a repository, you describe a task, and it reads files, writes code, runs tests, and iterates. The mental shift is that you are no longer writing a prompt. You're assigning a task and then reviewing the diff. That review step is where good engineers and careless ones separate. One practical note: the course itself is free, but hands-on work needs a Claude plan or an API key, and API usage bills separately. Claude Code in Action is the sequel, and it's about the hard part, running long, hands-off sessions you can actually trust, steering, configuring, automating, and verifying. Anybody can get an agent to write a function. Getting an agent to work unsupervised for 40 minutes across a dozen files and hand you back something correct is a genuinely different skill. It's about setting up guardrails, permissions, and checks so that trust is earned structurally rather than hoped for. Take 101 first, then this. Claude Platform 101 is another recent addition, and it changed my recommended starting point for developers. It teaches you to build on the Claude platform from the ground up, whether you've made a handful of API calls or you've only ever used the chat window. That framing matters. A lot of scientists are excellent programmers in R or Python, but have never written an application that calls a model in a loop. This is the bridge. If you're in that position, start here rather than jumping straight into the full API course. Building with the Claude API is the heavyweight. It covers the full spectrum of working with Anthropic's models through the API, and it is genuinely comprehensive. System prompts, context windows, streaming responses, tool use and function calling, and the architecture patterns that hold up when you build something real. This is not a toy demo course. It's multi-hour and code heavy. If you want to build an internal tool for your lab, a triage assistant, an annotation helper, a literature screener, this is the course that gets you there. Introduction to Claude Cowork is the newest arrival, and it's aimed at people doing knowledge work rather than writing code. Cowork is about working alongside Claude on your real files and projects. The course covers the task loop, how plugins and skills fit in, file and research workflows, and how to steer multi-step work responsibly. The stated goal is that you're productive in your first week. For a lot of researchers, this is actually the more relevant agentic tool, because most of your day is documents, data files, and reading, not repositories. Now we get to the three that change how you work. Introduction to agent skills. A skill is, at its simplest, a folder of markdown instructions that Claude applies automatically to the right task at the right time. You don't invoke it. Claude reads the description and decides it's relevant. Think about what that means for a lab. You write down your plotting conventions, your QC thresholds, your file naming scheme once. Then every analysis follows them without you repeating yourself. The course takes you from your first skill to distributing them across a team. Introduction to subagents solves a problem you've definitely hit. Your context window fills up with noise. You asked one question, and now there are 4,000 lines of log output sitting between you and the thing you're actually working on. A subagent is a specialized agent you spin up for a bounded task. It works in its own separate context, does the messy exploration, and hands back only the summary. Your main conversation stays clean. You can build specialized ones: a code reviewer, a test runner, a literature searcher. These three get confused constantly, so let me draw the line clearly. Skills change how Claude does a task. Their instructions, applied automatically by relevance, always use Arial, always report adjusted p-values. Subagents change where the work happens, a separate context window that you delegate to, and that reports back. Go read these 40 files and tell me what you found. And the model context protocol changes what Claude can reach. A server that exposes your actual systems, query our database, launch that pipeline, fetch that sequencing run, how, where, and what, different axes entirely. Introduction to Model Context Protocol. MCP is an open standard for connecting AI systems to external tools and data. This course teaches you to build both servers and clients from scratch, in Python, which is exactly the right language for this audience. You learn the three core primitives: tools, which are actions the model can take; resources, which are data it can read; and prompts, which are reusable templates you expose. Master those three, and you can wire Claude into essentially anything you already have running. And then Model Context Protocol, Advanced Topics, which is where it gets serious. Sampling, which lets your server ask the model for help mid-operation. Notifications, so a long-running job can stream progress back. File system access patterns, and transport mechanisms, which is how you actually deploy a server rather than run it on your laptop. If the first MCP course teaches you to build one, this one teaches you to build one that other people in your group can depend on. Now let me make the case for why, out of all 20 courses, those last two are the ones I'd push hardest. Here's the whole architecture. On the left, the AI application, Claude Desktop, Claude Code, or something you wrote yourself. It contains an MCP client. In the middle is the protocol itself, a standard message format, which is the entire point. Write your server once, and any compliant client can use it. On the right is your server, which you control, exposing 3 things: tools that can be called, resources that can be read, and prompts that can be reused. And behind that server sits everything you already have: your database, your cluster, your file system, your instruments. Let me make it concrete for a genomics group. You write one MCP server. It exposes 4 tools. One looks up a sample in your metadata sheet. One fetches QC metrics for a given run. One submits a job to your scheduler. One pulls a matrix out of an object store. That's maybe 200 lines of Python. And the moment it exists, you can ask, in plain language, which samples from the 3rd batch failed QC, and then rerun those through the pipeline with the corrected reference. The agent isn't guessing. It's calling your code against your data. And here's the difference, stated plainly. Without MCP, you describe your data structure every single time. The model writes code against columns it imagined. You copy the code out, run it, paste the error back in. You are the loop. The human is the integration layer, doing clipboard work. With MCP, the schema is discoverable. It queries the real thing and sees real output. It runs something, reads the actual failure, and corrects. The loop is closed. That's not a productivity tweak. That's a different category of tool. Track 4, Cloud. This one is short, but for some of you, it's the only track that matters. Claude with Amazon Bedrock has an interesting origin. Anthropic built it as a first-of-its-kind accreditation program for AWS employees, and then released the full course publicly so anyone can follow along. It's about running Claude inside your own AWS account. And if you work anywhere with a data governance committee, you already know why that matters. The question is never, is this model good? The question is, where does the data go and who signed off? Bedrock is one answer to that question. Claude on Google Cloud is the mirror image, covering the full spectrum of working with Anthropic models in Google Cloud through Vertex AI. Quick note, because you'll see the old name floating around. This course used to be listed as Claude with Google Cloud's Vertex AI. It's now just Claude on Google Cloud. Same course, updated title. Don't take both of these. Take whichever one your institution has already signed a contract with, because that decision was made for you long before you got there. Track 5, People and Organizations. 6 courses about rolling this out to other humans. Teaching AI Fluency is the Train the Trainer course. It's built for academic faculty, instructional designers, and anyone who has to teach and assess AI fluency in an instructor-led setting. That assessment piece is the hard part, and it's why this course exists. Designing an assignment that still measures something real when every student has access to a capable model is a genuinely difficult problem, and pretending otherwise hasn't worked for anyone. If you run a workshop, a course, or a lab meeting, this is yours. Then there's a whole family of AI fluency variants. Same underlying framework, tuned to who's in the room. For educators, aimed at faculty and institutional strategy. For students, focused on learning, career planning, and academic integrity. There's a bundled 2-course path, specifically for primary and secondary educators, and one for nonprofits, which is explicitly about increasing impact and efficiency without drifting away from mission and values. Pick the one that matches your audience. Don't take all 4, they overlap heavily by design. And 2 more that are easy to miss because they're recent. AI Fluency for Small Businesses is aimed at small teams with no IT department and no room for a failed rollout. And AI Fluency for Builders is for people who own the full arc, from problem all the way to shipped solution. That one is quietly the most relevant variant for a lot of you. If you're a solo researcher, or you run a small group, or you're building something on the side, you own that entire arc yourself. Nobody hands you a spec. One warning worth repeating, because I keep seeing this. If you've seen paid Claude certifications being sold online, those are not from Anthropic. The official material is free, all of it, and the completion certificates come from the courses themselves at no cost. There is one legitimate exception worth knowing about. Claude Certified Architect is a separate, official, partner-facing technical certification, and that's a real distinct thing. But a $200 bootcamp, promising to certify you in Claude, is repackaging free material. If you paid for anything in this catalog, you were overcharged by exactly the amount you paid. So what order should you actually take these in? 2 paths. Path A is for the researcher who doesn't write much code. Start with Claude 101 to get past the chat box, then AI capabilities and limitations to calibrate when you should and shouldn't trust what comes back. Then AI Fluency Framework and foundations for the 4 competencies, and finish with introduction to Claude 𝗂𝗂𝗏, because that's the tool that meets you where you actually work, in documents and data files. That's about 1 focused week. Path B is for research computing, and this is the one I'd push. Start with Claude Platform 101, the bridge from chat window into code. Then Claude Code 101 followed by in action for agentic development. Then agent skills and subagents together, because they solve adjacent problems, encoding your conventions and protecting your context. And then finish with both MCP courses, which is where you connect all of this to your own infrastructure. 2 to 3 weeks and worth every hour. And here's a 30-day plan that actually finishes, because the failure mode with free courses is that you bookmark 11 of them and complete 0. Week 1, Foundations. Claude 101 plus Capabilities and Limitations, 2 evenings. Week 2, Get in a Code. Platform 101, then Claude Code 101 and build 1 small thing. Week 3, Skills and Subagents. Write 1 skill that encodes your lab's conventions and actually use it. Week 4, MCP. Take the intro course and ship 1 server with 2 tools in it. The deliverable at day 30 is a working server, not 4 certificates. Here's the whole thing on 1 screen. Screenshot this. 20 courses across 4 tracks, plus the K through 12 path. Every one of them free, self-paced, and certificate-bearing. The catalog is at anthropic.skilljar.com, and it has grown 3 times in the last 5 months, so it's worth checking back rather than assuming this list is final. If you take only 2, take the 2 MCP courses. I'll say the thing I believe here. Connecting an agent to your own tools, your own pipelines, and your own data is where the real leverage lies. Everything else, and I include the very impressive coding agents in this, is a nicer autocomplete. Useful, genuinely useful, but it doesn't change what's possible in your lab. An agent that can query your metadata and launch your pipelines does. Last thing, and then I'll get out of your way. Save this, then actually open one. The gap between bookmarking and finishing is where essentially all of the value leaks out. So pick 1 course today, not a plan, a course. Block 90 minutes, which is less than 1 seminar, and finish it before you let yourself bookmark the next one. That's the whole trick. There isn't a clever version of it. If this was useful, there's more where it came from. Multiome Academy publishes open access bioinformatics tutorials, books, and tools, and you can reach me through the contact page. Subscribe on YouTube at @nishat_bio AI for more of these. And connect with me on LinkedIn where I post this kind of breakdown regularly. Tell me in the comments which course you're starting with. I read all of them. Thanks for watching.